What are you doing? Oh my God! What are you doing?
Put your hands behind your back like you're told. Put your
What
hands.
are you doing? Oh, Jesus. Oh my God. Oh, please.
Where you come from and you took out
Man, I don't even know you. What I need to talk to you for?
That's fine.
What I gotta report that I ain't in jail? You gotta have to ask me nothing.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. This is tail right. Yeah. So really, 23.
This is Sarah Webb, who was late for work and, unfortunately for her, caught speeding on her way there. A Roswell police officer, Courtney Brown, pulled her over.
You know how fast you were just going, ma'am?
I'm so sorry, I'm late for work.
So you could go over 80 miles per hour on 92? No, ma'am.
When Webb presented her ID, Officer Brown went back to the patrol vehicle. When she came there, she was unsure of what to do, because the speed of Miss Webb's car wasn't actually measured with the device, but rather based on the officer's observations. So, she asked Officer Christy Wilson what to do.
Take her probably for reckless.
Okay.
She flew past me going probably 80, 85 on 92 in the wet road. She said she's running late for work. I had to get up to 90 to catch her.
They ended up creating a master plan. They decided to open a flip coin app on their phone and flip a coin, which would ultimately decide Miss Webb's fate. Both being super happy about the decision they had just made, they decided that heads should mean arrest and tails should mean release. So they went ahead and flipped the coin. And here's what it landed on.
Okay.
This is tail right.
Yeah. So really,
23.
The female officer is heard saying 23, which in police language means arrest. So they went ahead and arrested Sarah Wen for reckless driving. They handcuffed her and took her to the patrol vehicle, which came to her as a complete shock. When the footage from the female officer's body cam became public, they got in some serious trouble. They were severely criticized and called unprofessional by media and the whole nation. This was Webb's response to the situation.
Angry and upset. It just hurt to know that, you know, these people are supposed to be looking out.
All charges against Miss Webb have later been dropped. The problem was, though, that she had only received the footage months after everyone else has already seen it. After the footage was released, they started an investigation in which they took a closer look at the case involving Officer Brown and Officer Wilson. When it concluded, they were both fired from their position. Roswell Police Chief Rusty Grant commented on the incident, stating that both officers were involved in actions, whether on or off duty, that negatively impacted the department's efficiency and eroded public respect for both the employees and the department itself. Although this stop might have been justified, since Sarah Webb was speeding, the next arrest is even crazier and happened to a man who couldn't have been less guilty than he was. This is David, outside a nail salon, waiting for his girlfriend Alice. He's on his phone, waiting for his girlfriend, who's getting her nails done. While on his phone, minding his own business, he noticed that there are two police officers walking in his direction. At first, he didn't think much of it, as they didn't have a reason to be wanting to talk to him. But things got messy when he actually was the reason for their arrival. He put his phone away and got ready for the confrontation, without having any idea of what's going on. Turns out the cops were actually there to arrest and handcuff him. Even after all that, he still had no idea what's happening, trying to find a reason for the arrest in his mind, without success. The situation then escalated as an officer began to read his rights out loud. There was a police car waiting for him, but he tried to stay calm anyways and obey the orders.
No, she was still in
He'll be at the College Park jail. You can bond him out if you need to.
The officers noticed his confusion and explained the situation, telling him, "You're being arrested for loitering, sir. It's against the law." That basically means that just by waiting for his girlfriend, paying for her nails and scrolling through his phone, he committed a crime worthy of an arrest. He wasn't sure how being a customer could be a crime.
It is loitering.
If I literally paid for her meal.
You're around everybody's business. Around everybody's business.
How is that?
At this point, it was clear that simply waiting for his girlfriend is about to get him arrested. However, he still couldn't understand it. David was a man of law, however. This situation made him question his decisions. He tried to talk the officers into letting him go by telling the truth, which was that he is simply waiting for his girlfriend. To prove his point, David even offered his card to prove he actually paid for Alice's nails, But that didn't work either. Yet they still insisted that he was loitering, which is a law defined as follows: an offense for being in a place, time, or manner that deviated from what a law-abiding person would typically do and cause reasonable concern for others' safety. Loitering basically means moving in a slow, idle manner, making purposeless stops in the course of a trip, journey, etc. And while he was kind of doing that, it didn't seem like a crime.
I appreciate you helping me.
All right, have a good one.
I actually do appreciate
I'll
it.
get my
'Cause
customer
I know what could happen.
It's
I
actually
should.
late. You can leave them up in my box.
Can I have a, sir, can I have my, lighter for Tom? Hey, my name's David, honestly. It's my real name.
The situation got to a point where he was taken to the College Park jail. When Alice came out of the salon, David wasn't there, so she proceeded to ask the officers if they had seen him. After they told her about his arrest, she was just as shocked as him. She was getting mad and decided to call their friend JJ to help get David out of jail. However, in order to get David out of jail, they needed to cover the bail amount, which they couldn't do. So, David and his crew had to wait till Monday to pay the bill for a crime he didn't commit. During that time, they decided to press charges against the officer who initially arrested David. It was clear that the female cop's only intention was asserting authority. The charges against David were later dismissed by the judge in court, and the officer who arrested him was urged to undergo additional training. But in this next encounter, an officer should really consider some driving lessons. This is Mr. Kern, cruising alongside Officer Carly Lewis at the peak traffic hour on a 3-lane road. All of the sudden, Officer Lewis noticed a vehicle with expired license plates and pulled them over. Allegedly, Officer Lewis made a quick move to the nearby lane, which Mr. Kern didn't expect. The quick maneuvering of Lewis's vehicle caused Mr. Kern to hit the brakes hard in order to avoid hitting the officer's vehicle. Mad at what just happened, he followed the officer and asked for her name and badge number.
Does not know how to yield to lights and sirens, and he's sitting here recording me. And I almost ran him off the road. You okay?
While Mr. Kern approached Officer Lewis, she had already called backup. It's important to note that the only reason he tried to talk to the officer was to obtain her badge number, because, well, he was involved in a near-miss scenario that wasn't really his fault at all. And while it's obvious that the officer was in the wrong here, she still tried to blame it on Mr. Kern, stating that he failed to yield to a police car and proceeded to record her without permission.
With the confrontation. I apologize.
You almost ran me off the wall.
I initiated my lights and
I didn't hear
sirens.
anything.
But was your music on? Because I had the lights.
Officer Lewis did later apologize to Mr. Kern for what happened, but only after questioning the driver of the vehicle with expired license plates. Shortly after, Sergeant Wolf came for backup and talked to Mr. Kern, who, despite Lewis's apology, helped make the situation escalate even further. When he was asked to give an ID, his immediate response was, "Am I being detained?" And surely enough, the classic scene happened again. He was threatened to be arrested in case he refused to provide his ID. And guess what happened then? They called even more backup.
Listen, talk to me. Just do me a favor. All I'm asking you.
I'm a private citizen.
Just take your hands out of your pocket while we're talking,
Right.
okay? I called for backup, all right?
Yeah.
Mr. Kern wasn't having any of it and stood his ground, but the officers still insisted and tried to have it their own way. Things went as far as Officer Lewis issuing Mr. Kern a citation for obstruction. Mr. Kern suffered a shoulder injury while hitting the brake as hard as he could, but he declined the ambulance because he feared that his new car would have been towed. The case against him was later dismissed due to lack of evidence. This is Antonio Arnello Smith, who is cooperating and talking to a police officer, answering all his questions. The following video was released by Valdosta Police Department and was recorded on the officer's body camera.
Waiting up for Western Union. Call my sister right now. She's in Florida. You have a cell phone, call her. Don't
Call
talk to me
who?
like this. Call my sister in Florida.
When they're talking, a white officer sneaks up behind Smith, bear hugs him, and slams him to the ground, face first. Smith was heard saying, "What are you doing? Oh my God!"
Oh my God! What are you doing?
Then, two more white police officers arrive and help hold the poor man down. They proceed to handcuff him. It's a clear case of power abuse, as when the first officer bear hugs Smith, he then yells, "Put your hands behind your back," even though he physically cannot do that, since the officer's hands are wrapped around him.
Oh my God, you broke my wrist. Oh my God, you broke my wrist. Oh my God.
Yeah, he might be broke.
Oh Jesus, oh my God.
Smith tries to tell the officers that they broke his wrist as they slammed him to the ground, and they simply reply by saying, "Yeah, it might be broke." Finally, an officer tells Smith he's being arrested on an outstanding warrant, but another one then informs him that they've tackled and arrested the wrong man. After being told that, there's a long silence. Smith proceeded to sue all the officers and the Valdosta's police chief, Major and all the others, and it's only right that he did that, since the police truly did use excessive force and violated a whole list of his civil rights.
Just make it a little faster.
And Barker Jerry Leon.
Oh, you wrote it down, all right. Sorry.
You want me?
Just don't make it first name.
I need to go.
I got it. Don't worry about it.
A man in Galveston is demanding the UTMB Police Department be held accountable after he says officers sicked a canine on him in a case of mistaken identity. They thought he was an escaped inmate when he was actually a patient who had just been treated.
Ironically, that the man willingly admitted himself to the hospital because he believed the police were out to get him. Later, after leaving the hospital, he claims that his fear almost turned into reality. Here's footage captured by a surveillance camera outside UTM Hospital in Galveston on May 8th. In the video, we see Jeremy Cummins, who had recently been discharged from the hospital, walking. As he leaves the hospital premises, police officers approach him, under the mistaken belief that he is an escaped inmate.
Them, I am not an escaped inmate.
However, the officers persist in chasing him and subsequently release the police K-9 to apprehend him. According to Jeremy Cummins, he was well aware that running would be the worst course of action in his situation. Cummins endured several bites from the K-9 before officers swiftly took him down, securing him with handcuffs. During a second body camera recording, a UTMB police officer candidly acknowledges the occurrence of an error.
Ready to hear this? Yeah. Okay. So TDC sees this guy in scrubs and wearing like a towel or a blanket. They think it's one of theirs. They go after him thinking it's a prison break. It ain't nobody that, just somebody who just...
Despite everything that had transpired, Jeremy Cummins, who was merely walking home after being discharged from the hospital, ended up being taken to jail. Initially, he was charged with evading arrest, but fortunately, those charges were later dismissed. The UTPB Police Department declined to provide any comments regarding the incident. However, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice did issue a statement explaining that a correctional officer had observed a UTM hospital patient acting suspiciously near the prison side of the hospital and reported it to the police. In response to the ordeal, Cummins and his attorney are now seeking damages from the hospital's police department, along with an apology for the unfortunate misunderstanding.
They made a mistake. They gonna pay.
The case sparking outrage. Two Georgia police officers fired after video surfaced on social media showing them punching and kicking a man in the head who was handcuffed on the ground. But tonight, one attorney claiming that video.
The individual who was the victim of the assault caught on video is demanding that the officers involved face criminal charges for their actions.
Punched, tased, kicked in the head, and incarcerated for no reason. I am a law-abiding citizen whose rights were repeatedly violated.
According to Demetrius Hollins, he got pulled over near Atlanta, and things quickly spiraled out of control. A witness managed to film a video showing Sergeant Michael Bongiovanni striking Hollins, who was already on the ground and in handcuffs. Additionally, another person recorded Officer Robert McDonald stomping on the 21-year-old's face.
What they did was a crime.
According to Bongiovanni's lawyer, the video is deceptive. Instead of a punch, it depicts a shoulder strike, which allegedly aligns with police protocol used to ensure Hollins's compliance during a search for weapons. As a result of the incident, both officers were terminated within 24 hours, and the district attorney is presently considering whether they will be prosecuted.
Literally no excuse for behavior like
the attorney representing Bongiovanni asserts that the sergeant's actions were in accordance with his training and fully supports his 19 years of service. On the other hand, Officer McDonald chose not to provide any comments regarding the incident.